Very busy. I don't know how I've managed to still be very busy, but...
Well, we all... I don't know. I just feel like sometimes it's busyness for business sake. You know, it's like...
Yeah.
I have so many continuous irons in the fire that I've just kind of confused a lot of the time. But anyway, it's good. It's good. It keeps me occupied anyway. And what about you? What? I'm curious to know, because you're a man of mystery, international man of mystery. What the fuck you're up to all the time?
Well, let's see. I was a producer on a movie that we shot in October 2019, and October, November, December, and then I went into a very long post-production because of COVID. Obviously, we could carry on, but it took forever. So I'm still producing movies. So that was a movie called She Will,
right,
with Alice Cree as star and a bunch of other very interesting people. So that now finally is about to start its festival life. So that was long, and it was sort of medium budget film, but it was quite complicated. It had a lot of VFX shots in and so on. I am developing a 150,000 square foot film and television studio with my business partner, Jason Connery.
Wow.
And then I do a few things kind of like you do. You know, I'm doing some curriculum work for NFTS and, you know, various things like that.
Great.
You know, too many things like that. Same as you, you know.
Well, the thing is, you know, that freelance theory is fine when everything kind of evens out over time, right?
Yeah.
But as we all know, what happens is you set so many machines in motion, and then they all want tending at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no. So that's all interesting. I don't really do any music stuff apart from listen to music at the moment.
Really? Who are you listening to at the moment?
Most recently, I'm having a bit of a Staples singer rediscovery.
How about that?
I was checking out, you know, on Scorsese's Last Waltz, the Staples singers do The Wait.
Yeah.
Song The Wait, and I was checking that out, and then I found a great YouTube video of Mavis Staples rehearsing backstage a version of it with Wilco. So,
do you know I work with Mavis Staples?
I do, yeah.
So they tried to hit on me. It was quite interesting.
Okay, yeah, that's a good story. But yeah, so Staples singing and kind of listening to, what was I listening to? Solomon Burke, Fast Train, having a whole kind of soul thing at the moment. And otherwise, I listen to, I guess, kind of some of the more noisy alt country. Anything that's not electro.
Good. Well, you're on the right podcast then.
Well, Ben, recently, funnily enough, I was thinking about you because I was preparing playlists for the director of this film, She Will, and that was all about electros. So I had to go back through my archive, and you know, I was putting some stuff like Holger Zukai on, and also really early Edgar Varese, but I put a Dignity of Labour track on there.
Oh, it's great, isn't it? It still sounds great, that, I think.
That does sound amazing still.
I mean, I actually, you know, I these podcasts I do, you may have heard some of the others, I don't know, but but they tend to be a bit all over the place in terms of the timeline. I like it that way, so it's my podcast. Do what the fuck I want.
I like the relaxed vibe.
Yeah. No, it's just as things pop into my head. I do actually do some research, you know, but I was going to ask you about the flexi disc, because that always makes me laugh when I think about the flexi disc on Dignity of Labour, and what's your recollection of that? I know.
Well, I recall. Well, my recollection is skewed by the fact that now these things are collectors. You know, so a version of Dignity of Labour that has a flexi disc is a thing. But my recollection is that discussion was absolutely for real.
Yeah.
You know, I.
But we did decide in a kind of meta way to record it just in case. I can't remember where that decision came from.
I have a well. Listen, everything was so meta, wasn't it? You can't really help. I mean, I don't know. Was it so that it could be policed, so that we could all go, no, definitely? I said,
oh yes,
maybe
that makes sense.
That feels believable.
Yes, absolutely feasible. Yeah. Good Lord. Yes, you've brought it all back to me now.
Oh, goodness, yeah. And then maybe I just decided to have some fun and be meta and just release it. Yeah.
We were terribly postmodern, weren't we?
Indeed.
I mean you were. Your approach to graphic design and record cover design, but also the structure of fast product was pretty postmodernist. I think it may have even been mentioned in the postmodernist V&A exhibition.
Oh, well, I don't know. That would be nice.
It was.
It was, from my point of view, self-consciously postmodern because, I mean, as you know, before I did listen, by the way, to your interview with Joe, his account, which I'd completely forgotten of how I became the reserves manager. It's accurate, actually, but I'd completely forgotten it. But before that, I was taking a year out from architecture courses, you may which I've still not gone back to. But the reason I took a year out is because they did not like postmodernism. And I was really into this guy, Charles Jenks.
Right.
Yeah, I left in a huff because I thought I was a postmodernist. And so that whole postmodernist...
Even identifying yourself as a postmodernist is postmodern. That's it's a continuous iterative kind of process.
You're right. But so, all of that kind of reference and zeitgeist kind of wasn't an accident, but it was kind of, it's weird, isn't it? You don't, at the time, it was all very visceral, wasn't it? Everything.
Yeah.
I mean, we were all young. It was super, it was just very intense, everything.
Look, I have to credit you, Bob, with awakening my interest in the idea of fleshing out our band. But I mean, just as a general theory for all bands, the idea of fleshing it out as identifying it as a self-conscious art project.
Right.
I really have to credit you with a large part of that, because I don't think any of us would have had the bravery or the perspicacity to make that real, were it not for your encouragement.
That's it's very nice of you to say so, but I'm proud of that to an extent, and it's interesting because, of course, I did actually see all of those. I suppose it matches what I thought I was doing in a way, because, I didn't have any conventional idea of a manager. I didn't think I was a manager in the sense of let's go on the road and get some income from gigs, whatever. But all the signs were there in that amazing group of people that it's like when you first sent the demo to me. And there's that bit of Mylar, which, by the way, was exhibited in the National Museum of Scotland.
That's right.
2 years ago,
How brilliant.
Alongside a postcard that Bowie sent me from Switzerland. But you sent me, the track list was written on Mylar, and I've still got it. And then there was a sort of...
Could you send a photo of it to me?
Yeah, it's sort of put somewhere safe, but I will, I'll get it.
I mean, that's a real historic document, frankly.
Yeah, and then the other bit was on that classic computer paper at the time, where, I don't know what it had.
Continuous, it was called continuous feed paper.
Yeah.
All was at the side.
Lines and the holes and so, there was all the indication. And then, obviously, a lot of what I did with fast product graphics, I suppose, which in itself is probably postmodern, was, I would edit what the bands brought to me, right? But you guys had all of those elements, And like you say, I suppose, I felt like my job was to reflect back and go, yeah, you are an art project. All of these things.
Well, we both came from the fanzine background, right?
Yeah.
And so I've during the process of making all these podcasts, I've been saying to people that I regarded the visual aspects of what we were doing strongly connected with the fanzine kind of confidence that you could create something visually. However shit it was reproduced, it didn't matter. It was just doing it. And the other thing was that I need to let the listeners know, because people are fascinated with that being boiled cover, because they don't really understand how it came about. So just to nail this one forever, so I never get asked a question about it again, I did that kind of study of the idea with the letter set stuff, which was a complete mess, I acknowledge, but I can't remember what it looked like. And then you took the elements out of it and created that classic cover.
That's exactly what happened. And the stuff you sent was a mess, but also had in it the makings of this iconic image. Yeah, which we kind of together managed to unlock. I hadn't thought about this because I was moving my pictures around actually at weekend, but I think just behind, can you see that orange poster there?
Yeah.
Which says, I like it. What is it? That is by a guy called Anthony Burrell,
right?
A graphic designer who got in touch with me because of all fast product sleeves, including especially being boiled. When he had an exhibition recently, he said, and a book, and he said, just want to tell you that I was inspired by all of that.
Oh.
So, but he specifically referenced the being boiled sleeve. But yeah, I can 100% endorse your.
All right, good. Okay, so the next thing is, I was always a fan of your choice of colours, the artwork. Because I would have never have thought of that as kind of, I don't know what colour you'd call it, what Pantone reference it was. But and also when it was reproduced, it always seemed to change colour.
A little bit, yeah.
If you look on the internet and type in being boiled sleeve, there's about 18 Pantone references for you.
Right.
But the original one was a sublime kind of, I don't know, salmon pink, would you call it?
Yeah, it was. I can't actually. I don't know now, if I've got all of your, because at that time when you were doing artwork, you had, literally you're doing it on different layers of tracing paper for different colors. And so it's a very physical thing. And I don't know if they still got it, but I can't remember the Pantone reference because I was super into Pantone. Yeah, I just discovered.
Me too.
Yeah, I had that sort of, they do those hard copy printed Pantone.
The right thing, right?
Yeah. Fantastic. So I can't, well, it's a bit of a project really. I should check what Pantone number it is, but I used that same color again then. Actually, I referenced it being very meta on Earcom.
Right.
I used that color again.
And
Earcom 1 had it was meta, from the journey we all went with the Human League, it was so interwoven with all these things. So Econ 1 was meta in terms of the Human League in another way, in that it had a 7-inch cardboard disc, which was unplayable, which was just for a cardboard disc for color of the being boiled cover.
Interesting. Yeah. I like that. And so, okay, so this is really fascinating stuff to me. So would you call yourself a conceptualist? I mean, Fast Product was a conceptualist.
Yeah. It absolutely was. Somebody the other day asked me, well, how was it so different to other record labels? And my answer is because it wasn't a record label.
Yeah.
It was something. And I know there was sometimes, I mean, it's actually really nice the characterization you gave to the fact that I helped bring a focus to what you were all doing, because it was never about claiming some kind of authorship for myself, but I know sometimes for the bands, it was kind of quite a tense thing because we weren't just a record label.
No.
We were always tweaking a little bit.
Right. So here's the thing. I think is, the first product was such an attractive proposition for bands, because really it wasn't about a kind of style of music, although all like difficult pop stuff, and yeah, I suppose it kind of comes under that, but it was deliberately obtuse a lot of the time from a musical point of view.
Yeah.
But also, politically, as you know, I am a socialist, and I just wanted to know if you are still a socialist.
I'm not sure. Look, I always had a very strong libertarian streak. Not libertarian. I mean, libertarian now is really weird.
Yes, it's got a different meaning now entirely.
It now seems to mean living in Montana with an AK-47 and shooting at the government. But I for a while, I mean, yes, I was absolutely immersed in a lot of leftist politics. Obviously, a lot of that thinking came from cultural theory on the left, but I've always been a little bit too much of an individualist to fully, yes, broadly the answer is yes, but I've always been too much of an individualist to fully engage. And it's funny, because I was going to, you asking me to do this made me think about some of these things, and I found this piece by a guy he's called Ben Watson. He's a sort of leftist philosopher, who he was being critical of fast product, kind of being part of some commercial selling out of socialism, which I thought was interesting. But then he said one of the things fast product stood for was getting rid of the fear of pleasure. And actually, I thought, well, yeah, I was sort of sign up to that. We were saying it's okay to have strongly held views and still have fun, I suppose. I guess that's that difficult fun thing.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, that's quite profound in a lot of ways. Because really what you're talking about is a massive change of context since we started doing our thing together.
Oh yeah, it's so, yeah, I mean, it's such a strange political.
I can't figure it out anymore. I did actually consider submitting my services potentially as an MP for the Labour Party when Corbyn was in charge, and I got a certain way down the line, and I thought, well, I'm going to have to give up all my music to do it properly, and in the end, I just couldn't face it. So, who wants to be a fucking politician anyway?
I know, who would be in currently, because I think my politically thing I do get worried about is that, and I can't tell if this is just being of a certain generation, but the ability to actually discuss viewpoints. You just, doesn't matter what side you're on, you get shouted. I worry that ability to debate. I don't think we could do fast product now, because fast product was about sort of not being certain. I mean, if you think about Dignity Labour, nobody could be sure that, you mentioned that. It clearly seemed to be, it's an instrumental, it clearly seemed to be loaded with all sorts of references. But nobody could have solidly pinned that down.
That's right. There's an option, an option to interpret. I mean, we nailed that one on the head with we don't need this fascist groove thing.
Yeah.
Well, that was much more of a direct confrontation.
That was.
It's more like we were provocateurs, really, I suppose, is what you call it. Yeah.
Because what was interesting, we don't, I discuss, we don't need this fascist groove thing with a member of Consumol in Red Square on New Year's Eve 1984. And the only thing they heard from the UK was Nazareth.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
There was nobody around because not a lot of people went there at that time. And it was the middle of the night, and we just ended up having this chat. And I brought it up because I thought they'd love that.
Wow. And the interesting thing is, being adopted as a as a kind of clarion call for the anti-Trump brigade during. There were various. I kept getting sent. Suddenly I'd get like 5,000 extra Twitter followers, and I'm going, what the fuck is going on here?
Right.
And it was because there were a couple of kind of indie bands who'd done cover versions of this Groove thing. One in Canada, there was one in America as well. And then people started sending me photos of like placards with "We don't need this fascist Groove thing," and everybody inundated with requests to re-release it with different lyrics. And I was going,
that's interesting. But even that, you see, I saw that as even that was a more complicated piece because it was super funky, groovy.
Exactly.
And it was, if you think about it, the fact that it was it appeared to acknowledge that maybe fascists could have a groove, which is like, surely that's not what we're saying. There was some complex. The fact is, you didn't make a shouty anthem. You chose a different way, and it makes absolute sense. It's had more resonance because of that.
Exactly. Of course, the only thing we were kind of direct and shouty about is calling Reagan a fascist god in motion, which, of course, Mike Reed, as we all know, banned it on the radio. And then, who knows? It's an interesting kind of fork in the road, that, because if that, I remember at the time that, and the listeners need to understand that Bob, after the split, was our manager for a while. So, there was a lot of confidence, if I remember rightly, in the record company and you and everyone and us, that this record was amazing, and that it was possibly going to be top 20.
Yeah,
nothing like that could possibly happen now because there's no kind of event television thing.
I think that was absolutely what. I remember when you guys were working for Sony, just be blown away, because partly I was blown away, first of all, because of the boldness of making something that was funky and cool and protest. That sense that you didn't have to, if you like, going back to this, getting rid of the fear of pleasure. You weren't scared to put a cool groove on something that was saying something really important.
Well, this all came from the world of essentially black protest songs in the 60s and 70s, and we thought, as a white electronic group, you can't really pick something that's much more opposite to that kind of soul. And then we thought, well, fuck it. Then we found John Wilson, of course.
Yeah,
that changed everything.
Yeah.
That was just a piece of life-changing luck, really. Serendipity. Yeah, good word. So, but then, of course, when he got banned on the radio by Mike Reed and his cohort, I have to give Virgin credit that they didn't get discouraged.
No, they absolutely fought for it. I remember that at the time, they did. And it's sort of bizarre to look back at. As you say, now there's not a single platform where if you crack it, you isn't reach people. But at the same time, it's bizarre how vulnerable things were at that time to an organ of the state taking a dim view of it. I mean, insane,
It's like, but it's like a pack of cards, right? So if you couldn't get it on the Radio 1 playlist, then... if you couldn't get it on the Radio 1 playlist, then you couldn't get it on Top of the Pops.
No, you don't. Yeah,
because it wouldn't go high enough in the charts and so on. Yeah. So, and we saw the other side of that when later on with How Men Are, when we were saying This Is Mine on Top of the Pops, and those fuckers said, "I'm really profane this morning, aren't I? I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know what's going on. It must be your presence, I think."
No, well, sorry to interrupt your chain of thought, but I now, for a long time now, worked in film and TV. I swear all the time, not this morning, but my model is that scene in The Wire. Have you seen the scene in The Wire where Bunk and the other guy from The Wire are discussing a murder scene? It goes on for about 5 minutes, and they just go fuck, and and you know exactly what they're talking about. And I constantly have to find myself going, "Sorry, you've got to forgive me. Come from the music business." Anyway, sorry.
Yes. No, I was just saying. That arsehole Michael Hurl, who used to run Top of the Pops, said that if Glenn had done his knee in, and we were due to be on Top of the Pops, and he'd exploded his cartilage, and the Michael Hurl said he'd just come out of hospital. He's on morphine, Glenn, right? Said, oh, he can do it on a stool. He can sing it on a stool. And we said, he's in intense pain. He's also on morphine.
Right.
You want him to do the show. Can we not just politely bow out and you bring someone else in? And he said, if you don't do the show, then we are going to. Oh, hello, Bob. You've disappeared.
Martin.
Yeah.
Hold on, I'm back. Hold on a second.
All right.
I'm really sorry, but I'm on my. This is my phone, and very annoyingly, if somebody phones me up.
Oh, I see. I wondered what that. I thought you were cleaning the camera.
It might happen again, but yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I was saying that he said you'll never work in this town again. Basically, is what he said, and we never got on Top of the Pops ever again after that. And it just shows how fragile that world was, and well, it's not anymore because you can't go on anything. Nobody watches the video stations apart from 12-year-olds, Sad, isn't it? Incredibly sad, I think. Oh, and one more story about that quickly is we were doing some charity thing on the BBC. It was Children in Need or something, doing Temptation. And the head of music happened to know Glenn from another life and said, oh, I love Temptation. I love Hem17. I've been racking my brains trying to think how we can make things as exciting. What do you suggest for a show that we can put on TV that would really excite? I'm going, you've just got rid of Top of the Pops. What's wrong with you? Just do something. And then, of course, they tried to, and it was a nightmare. But anyway, yes, tell us about. We've kind of covered this in the documentary that you kindly participated in about the history of the Human League ages ago now. But the whole just to kind of nail it for all time, the Virgin, the plotting behind the scenes to kind of make the best out of a bad job with the Human League. You knew I was going to have this question. It was as we thought it was. Discussions were going on with the record company, and it all came to the conclusion that it's best if I fucked off. So, but
characterize that conclusion differently. But yeah,
go on then. Well, no, that's what it felt like to me at the time.
Yeah, no, I know. Look, it's interesting. You just referenced the fact that when Heaven 17 and BEF and so on was started, I was actually a part of that. Which people often.
Yeah, no. Listen, I'm gonna go on to the nice positive bit after.
No, I get it. But
the Jeopardy moment.
Look, it's a long time ago. But yes, I thought this is not. There's massive potential here. I loved those first Human League albums. I didn't feel anything negative about them, but it didn't feel to me like it could go on. And as you know, as there always are in bands have extraordinary complex dynamics. And there was a lot of tensions, and I felt it wasn't unlocked. And I was actually worried that we were going to get dropped. Nobody said this. But, I thought, okay, this is going to come to an end. And it's not. I guess the project part of me couldn't accept.
No, fair enough.
And so definitely, though, I was So, yes, there were conversations. So I talked to the record label, talked to Simon primarily. Simon, both you know you. And because Simon's a really interesting guy. He's a big factor in music in a way that isn't recognized. And we should talk about it a bit. But so yes, I did proactively talk to him. And yes, I did conclude that you being in a different entity was part of the solution. Yeah, I did. Yeah, so in that sense, put my hand up, but it never occurred to me for 1 second that there wouldn't be something put together around you that was going to be equally exciting. I mean, yeah, sincerely, that was it.
No, I know, and I
on my part to assume that, or arrogant on my part to think that this could somehow work that way. But yes, I did do that.
Yeah. Thank you for
Okay about that.
That's good. Sorry. What? Yeah. So, but to give you your credit, you did present the concept of the production company thing, and you'd help me put that together and negotiate the deal with Virgin and all that stuff as British Literary Foundation. And so I am extremely grateful for that.
Well, you don't have to. Look, I tend to think, or for me, when I try and look back, it's really, I think we all thought what we were doing then did matter and was important, but it's sort of weird that it's still, God knows how many years later, does matter. It's flattering. But to me, I end up, I know this sounds sort of almost quasi-religious, I kind of think, well, I was just somehow there channeling stuff,
Yeah.
But a lot of the conversations with Virgin and Simon in particular were about me being secure that they would support both ideas.
Yeah.
Before I pushed it to that point. And I was equally worried. And if you were to speak, I think, to the surviving members of Human League, they would be equally frustrated that I appeared not to become. I was equally worried about whether or not they could survive without that part of the Human League that you been the lead on,
Right.
Fragile thing. I'm not sure how else to do it.
I think, well, you were all, I mean, you were not short of daring, I don't think. So let's go back to stories about the, when you were managed for a while, you managed the Human League and us, correct?
Yeah.
And so you used to tell us some very funny stories about them in the studio and driving Martin Russian insane and
absolutely not. Yeah.
I know it's sad the way that it all transpired, and funny enough, I talked to Joe about all this on his podcast, right. And I just wondered if you had any funny stories for me.
What about the ongoing Human League?
Yeah. It's all right. They don't have to be controversial or anything. Just anything amusing.
I don't know. I think the main thing about that is it's. I think again, it's now been talked about so many times as part of the public record that when Phil told me he found Sue and Joanne, and I was not at all sure. And then when they made Sound of a Crowd, I wasn't at all sure about where the Human League were going. I didn't like the Sound of a Crowd.
I didn't like it.
Still don't like it, and it was, in retrospect, it was a sort of transitional thing, and it was actually as much as it was difficult for me because it took me a while to kind of get my head around what Phil was doing. But on the other hand, when I had, if you will, sort of engineered this split, part of me what I thought about Phil was that he had some instinct about the popular audience, about how far they would go, just even in terms of how he presented himself. It's like he knew presenting himself like that was going to be engaging rather than freak people out. I wouldn't have necessarily known that. So I felt, so I was prepared. Basically, I was prepared to trust his judgment. Because I thought, okay, we've gone this far. And when I tried to unpick what was it about the ongoing Human League that I thought could work, it was that surprising judgment, which oftentimes I found mind-bogglingly difficult of Phil's, that was quite a sort of tense start. And then, look, I think other people have talked about a recording of Dare, which was, fascinating process. But then, of course, the other thing that I think absolutely was true, my recollection is when I heard the first bare bones of Don't You Want Me, I thought, this is a massive smash.
Did you?
Yeah. Now, partly, it's because it's just got that groove, it's just got that. And this isn't...
How much of that was Joe Callis, do you think?
Joe was obviously a key part for a while of that all coming together, because he just had a really solid sensibility and had listened to a lot of music. When something like that emerges, it comes out of all those different bits. So I don't know. I mean, I think Joe had a huge... It was almost like a kind of producery role in some levels, not what Martin did, of teasing out. And that was what was quite... That's why it worked with him coming in, because he didn't come in and go, I'm Joe Callis, this is how you do pop. He came in and teased out. So I think he had it wouldn't have been born if he hadn't been there. But that's not to say it was all him,
of course,
in a shape or form. But so I was absolutely sure it was a hit. And I think, again, this was one, I don't know what Simon Draper would say, but we were just sort of sitting around waiting for Phil to be prepared, because he really didn't want it out. My belief to this day, he really didn't want it out.
He didn't want to release Don't You Want Me?
No.
He didn't want to release Temptation either, originally.
So, didn't want to release Don't You Want Me. Now, I think it was because, and Phil was as it were, in the room with us. I talked about this, but at the time I thought, Phil, you fucking know that's a massive hit, and you're just messing with everybody.
Oh my God!
Which Phil, I'm sure he would admit to enjoying doing at times. In different ways. But I don't know. But yeah, he didn't want it released, and of course, and so I don't know. It's when you look back, it's always so strange, isn't it? These things then become a sort of inadvertently become a plan. Because actually, of course, inadvertently, it was a great plan. Joe, you released that one as the Christmas, the last single coming to Christmas, turned into an iconic thing. So, who knows? The madness became a plan, which...
I tell you what I think about Phil in retrospect, and it's taken me a long time to come to this realization, is I'm always talking about, like, wanting to address the general public, and that's all I'm interested in. I'm not interested in being... I was, earlier in my career I was, but now it's like I just want to be as popular as possible with as many different demographics and, worldwide if possible. And that became the central thing. I think Phil has and always has had an intuitive radar.
Yeah,
for being the common man, who's like the weird lad next door who I know in the street. It's all goes back to when I first started going clubbing in Sheffield. We went to this club called the Penthouse, and it was glam time, really. Right. And you get all these kind of like big hairy kind of builders coming in from Doncaster, wearing blue eyeshadow and and stuff, and going. It was just a time of understanding the popular culture, and Phil was so intent on that stuff.
Yeah.
But he wanted to be obtuse as well, and that dichotomy really. No,
I think it's exactly right, and that was my ongoing experience with the human. But to a degree. Sometimes that obtuseness also created something that was special, but it did finally I just got exhausted by it. And my memory is I resigned from managing from a phone booth in Burbank Airport. I had an Epson laptop, like beige and orange plastic Epson laptop that had no hard drive. It had a micro cassette instead of a hard drive, and I had this acoustic coupler which you could put handset
Oh my God.
And I was signed up to email, and I don't know what, early 80s, I guess. Not quite sure. Yeah, anyway. So literally, I was flying that morning to San Francisco, and I'm in Burbank Airport, which is a tiny airport with all this gear attached to a payphone, sending an email to somewhere in the UK that then turned it into a fax.
Wow.
Phil. And there's no copy of that, but that's my recollection. And I remember doing it. I was like, okay, I can't do this because he's staying in the Sunset Marquee, and he called me and woken me up before breakfast because he was really annoyed about his leased car. and I mean, there's a little, like, yeah, I'm not, anyway, he was furious about his leased car, and he called me up to know what we could do about that. And I just thought, no, can't
do it anymore. When was that then? Put a date on that for me.
Well, I'm trying to think. It will have been after Hysteria. It's mid-80s. It must have been.
Right.
I mean, some point after Hysteria, which was a really challenging experience for everyone.
Yeah.
And that was when, that was that moment when I quit.
Yeah. Okay. But did you do any more? Were you managing anyone else at the time?
Yes, Plissy at that time. And still through my company, guy you probably met, Rob Waugh, was managing ABC through my company. And I was still at that point managing Ability, which would be a whole nother story. Yeah. So, but then not long after that, I got out of management because I'd actually always, as a kid and a teenager, I'd watched more films than I'd listened to music.
Yeah.
I listened to Frank Zappa and I listened to Parliament before in particular, and a little bit of Miles Davis. I don't know how I came up with that combo, but my teenage thing had been movies, going to film houses and stuff. So I just thought, if I don't ever do it now, now's the time to do it. And the thing that crystallized it, I remember getting a call on behalf of Elton John. Somebody called me saying he's looking for a new manager. Would you do a meeting?
Shit.
And at the time, I was kind of asshole who just thought, oh, Elton John, old guy, past thing. Obviously, we now see that he's a complex and interesting artist and made some amazing records.
Yeah.
But I couldn't see that at all. And I just thought, I didn't get into this business to manage Elton John. Ridiculous.
I turned down a Rod Stewart album for political reasons. I also turned down a Bette Midler album because I thought she was past it, and then she went on to have like 10 Grammys or something. So I mean, we've all done that sort of stuff, and but you make the decisions based on your notions at the time.
Yeah.
I don't regret anything really.
Yeah, I don't have any regrets. I mean, the fast product thing is interesting. Just to go back to that briefly, as you said, it was a kind of art project that happened to use the appearance of a label, and in my view, it was an art project that everybody was on labels part of. It was a big, on one level,
Yeah.
might have brought a certain focus, but we were like, but that's also why fast product had to stop. So after decades,
you have to go out at the top.
Yeah, God, no, because then it would have just become a label, I suppose. And I was stupid enough on one level to go, no, I'm not going to leverage it.
Yeah. But you did sell bands like us and a couple of others to major labels. So you did. There was a kind of production line thing going on.
Yeah, then it went, exactly.
And so, but why did you do Pop Oral then, once you closed down Past Product?
Because I was enjoying pootling around in the studio too much and missed it.
Right.
Because we also then, what I thought it was doing for a little while there was amping up the contradictions by trying to make more poppy records on the one hand and more extremely odd records on the other. So
I see.
I made that record with a accordionist Frank Hanaway and a guitarist Michael Bartley, which was probably the most out there thing sonically at the time. At the same time as trying to make things that were closer to it. So like Fire Engine's Candy Skin almost got on the Radio 1 playlist, but then it was reviewed. I remember there was like some Radio 1 review program which said it was a really good track. It was the worst produced track.
Did you produce it?
Yes.
Oh, but, I see.
But yeah, so we were making super poppy things and super weird things. And so that Frank Hanaway album, weirdly, is a cult amongst certain Japanese prog rock.
Really?
Yeah, which I only discovered this about 5 years ago. It's weird. So that was kind of the idea, and did it for a bit, and then just thought, no, done.
Let's talk about Hillary and her influence on everything, because I don't think she probably gets as much credit as she deserves. Because
she'd probably agree with you on that. I mean, she and I split up a while ago. Look, she, to my mind, that sort of overall art project was something that I was doing art even before the label. But actually, Hillary's most important contribution was that, and I think this is clearly recorded, is that she bought me a copy of Spiral Scratch.
Right.
Gave it as a present. And that was absolutely the thing that made me think, oh, okay, what I can do with this art, right? This stuff that's going on in music is a great thing to do with this art.
Oh, okay.
So in that sense, she had a really, really crucial role. And then, of course, she did all sorts of things around everything else we were doing. In particular, she was very into photography. And then, of course, she had her own band, which, I think was an underrated band.
Cool. All right, let's talk about Tony Wilson.
Yeah.
Which you had an interesting relationship with, because you were both similar kind of. Yeah. Right. How much of what you did influenced what Tony Wilson did with Factory Records?
According to Tony, a lot.
Right.
He would say to me, and he still was, but we would talk quite a lot at that time before he started Factory. Subsequently, Factory just took off, and he was so busy we kind of lost touch with each other. Right. But at the time, we would talk a lot, and obviously we had a lot of the same. We both read Marcuse and Foucault and Althusser, and I think he'd read a little less Mao Zedong than I
had. Very well put. Le mot juste.
But yes, I didn't. Sorry, this is completely jumping apart. I read the military thoughts of Mao Zedong from line by line more than once, and it informed how I ran Fast Product.
Wow, okay. And what about what about
Tony? So I think, look, Tony and I used to talk. He was probably more explicitly saw himself as a situationist. It was a very specific kind of notion. But yeah, I think, I recently in an interview actually claimed that, the last Fast Product was Fast 12, and I claimed that Factory was Fast 13. We just hadn't given them a label number, which is
right.
Yeah, I think we were very influential, but probably in the sense of making Tony think he could do it. And I had conversation with Tony about his contractual, how he was going to contract things and stuff, and he was bolder than me at certain stuff. He kind of took it and ran with it. But of course, that also then the whole Joy Division thing became so huge that there was, because that's how I think Tony came in contact with me. He was talking to George, and we'd given them some of their first support gigs.
Right.
So I knew Joy Division guys,
Oh.
And I was concerned about their, we were going to sign Joy Division, and I was concerned about their use of some right-wing iconography.
Yes. What did you think about that?
Well,
was it deliberate on their part, or did you just like the way it looked?
No idea. No, it wasn't. Well, if it was deliberate, it was a provocation. In no sense, in any, I knew well at that time, and in no sense did it reflect some political thought on it.
Right.
It was a provocation that I was uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's not a good thing, is it? No, but I mean,
couldn't quite go there.
Right. Well, we all know that the Nazis had marvelous graphic design. They did. I mean,
so nice Hugo Boss uniforms.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Sell on Kitty is one of my favourite films.
And it was Hugo Boss, that company.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. You know, glitter SS, badges and all that stuff. Oh, my God. Yeah, but you can't use that for the purposes of marketing. And you can't associate yourself with that vernacular, I don't think.
I think it's difficult. Obviously, most people had no idea at the time. So, you know, in a sense, it moved on from that and it became a bigger thing. And you know, so I think now it would be quite difficult.
Yeah.
But, you know, they were amazing. They were an amazing band. And I think it was, you know, Joy Division were very much about looking into the darkness.
You
know, very much about looking into the darkness. And I suppose it was kind of a badge of, this is how dark, you know, we're not. My sense was if there ever was an explanation that it was, we're not afraid to look at any kind of darkness.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've read or listened to any of Peter Hook's autobiographies. They're quite interesting. He's a good man, actually, Peter. I like.
Yeah, I read his book because somebody told me there was something in there, and there's a bit which I'd forgotten about in where were we? There's a bit about me dragging a skinhead backstage to a college to, which I think in Rochdale. Did you ever play? There was a really interesting club in Rochdale, which was like an amazing gig, but a bit full on.
I don't recollect ever being to Rochdale.
Evidently, I don't know. There were skinheads. I mean, that was the reassuring thing about Joy Division, that everybody took against. You know, it wasn't like anyone was going, "Oh, they're playing with this super right wing."
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah,
and evidently, I dragged some guy backstage to apologize to the band because he'd be throwing.
Wow. Okay. And did that actually happen then? Yeah.
That did actually happen.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So there you go. That's Factory.
That's Factory. What else have we got here? So, I think we're nearing the end of this. But it's been absolutely hilarious and marvelous and great to see you. And where are you based now? Still in Edinburgh?
Yeah, right now I'm in Dunbar, which is a little harbour town just outside Edinburgh.
Right.
Yeah, no, I'm still based up there. I mean, again, like with Fast Product, I was always really keen to prove that this is, I think, a common ground we all had, which was we wanted to prove that you could be cosmopolitan and global without being in London.
Exactly.
So I've sort of carried on that.
Well, London's turning into like a gated community for people with no soul, as far as I can tell. Well, that's what the Tories want, right? They just want to get rid of all the poor people and whatever.
Yeah, it's weird.
Like LA, isn't it? Yeah.
I mean, it is weird. I spent a long time when I started in film. You know, there was Soho was still Soho, and I like that. I have to say, and it's just very It's all very different.
Yeah, it is. It is. But so I mean, how do you feel? All right, final serious question: how do you feel about the film world? I mean, is it something you want to carry on pursuing?
Yeah, I will now. Although, like I said, I really miss being in a studio, whether it's hanging out with the band that I've had some role to play or actually being hands-on. Because the last time I was in a studio was I actually recorded and produced Johnny Depp's Gypsy Band in a film called Chocolat.
Fantastic.
Which we recorded in Leith with a guy called Malcolm Ross as the arranger. But that was like the last time I got to play in the studio. So when was that? I don't know, 2001 or something. I didn't know. But look, the obviously the film business is completely changing at the moment because of the platforms. Nobody knows. But, the bottom line is there's some amazing high-end series.
Yeah, they're great. It's changed my viewing habits completely.
Yeah, exactly. And there's some extraordinary storytelling. And I think probably now I'm in the film business for the duration. Although I would love to, every now and then I think, like say, love to do something musical. I don't know what it would be. I mean, on this film, She Will, that I just finished, we were lucky enough to have Clint Mansell.
Oh, right, yeah.
Eat itself.
Yeah, fantastic.
So I talked to him a few times. I wasn't because I was a producer, I had the privilege of not having to worry about the music too much. But I fear he was tortured with some playlists I put together. A horrible feeling. Some of them were sent going, see this whole bazooka track? It just sounded like that. In which case I apologize to Clint.
I just had a very funny idea, by the way. I think maybe I should issue our interview on a flexi disc.
A giant, like 12-inch flexi disc.
Yeah, like 14-inch that you can't play.
Right. Perfect. Excellent. I'm up for that.
Like those old acetates where they used to have the extra bit round it.
Yeah. Acetates, that's the thing. And you put your little enigmatic thing in the inner screen.
Yeah.
No, I'll tell you one thing on film, just to finish a film thought generally, that it's very interesting because I went through the music business when it first of all when production became digital. I mean, when we all started, it was still analog. I mean, you guys were absolutely at the cutting edge of using this machinery. And of course, what then happened was that people, first of all, started creating presets that sounded like analog. And then they started using and bringing back in analog tools as well. And, even in electronica, the people would start messing about with tape or whatever, because there's a way you can mess about. And I think that it's interesting in film, which has become super digital in its production. I can see just the start of the same thing happen.
Really?
Where people are really hankering after the restrictions almost of shooting. Because it is super restricted in certain respects. So that's sort of interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah. I think, it would be a pity if you didn't make use of this immense passion and knowledge about the music industry and the people you've worked with in some way that couldn't kind of conflate the worlds of film and music. I mean, surely there's got to be something. Anton Corbijn did that thing about Joy Division, didn't he? And I'm just thinking of, I'm thinking like,
when I started music supervising, as a way of getting to really understand hands-on in the film business, and hence I ended up producing Johnny Depp's little band for it in that film, but amongst other things. But initially, I was the music business guy in the film business, and I had to really turn my back on it to get taken seriously. And now, lots of people who I deal with in film and TV, I think, have no idea about that past. They have no idea that actually, in terms of my life, it's a smaller part of my life. But I haven't figured out what the way is. But, I certainly still, what's great about it is I'm still discovering.
Yeah. We all are.
But I And I'm going, wow, there's still something when you hear the right chord texture groove that you haven't heard before, and it's just nothing else like it, is it?
It's still there. I mean, I do a lot of work with young people. Obviously, I teach and stuff, but I'm also on the Ivers Academy board, and so I've become more, sometimes against my will, embroiled in advocating for artists' rights in various parliaments around the world, and because I'm quite articulate and passionate about it, and it just upsets me continuously that young people who have got a much broader range of interests now, I think, and a much broader capability of making things in different ways. I mean, a lot, I know so many of them who make their own, small movies or and do their own soundtracks and produce it and publicize it and and that was simply impossible when we were growing up. So I just really, my big passion is that young people get the opportunity to make the most of their talent in a significant way, and I don't think we're addressing that as the old male and stale and whatever thing is still prevalent.
I think that I think it probably is no easier. I think there's a misconception that because of the internet and everything, it maybe is easier, and it's certainly not any easier. I think it's still very much at its root is a matter of economic deprivation. And that economic problem, if it is what then feeds into all the other areas of specific disadvantages, it tends to come from that. Because if you haven't got the, when I started out, I didn't have money behind me. I mean, the only money I ever had behind me was 300 quid at the Bank of Scotland. I have no idea why the Bank of Scotland. Because I told them what it was for. It's mind-boggling. No way a bank would lend you 300 quid.
Well, you know what, Bob? They don't really have discretion anymore. In fact, my bank doesn't. I don't. My bank, which is still on Marylebone High Street, after all this time, doesn't even have an on-site bank manager anymore. It's
you can't. These days, if you want a bank manager, you've got to bank with Coots.
Yeah,
that's it. Then you get a bank manager.
That's right.
I only know that because they're quite active in the film and TV world. But where were we? Economic deprivation. I mean, it's that. So I never had money behind me, but I obviously was middle class. So I had a certain level of confidence. I kind of assumed that somehow I'd make my way. I didn't think, shit, I might not be able to eat.
Yeah.
Next thing. Yeah. And that's still I mean, if you're talking about enabling creativity, there are still large numbers of people here wrestle with that.
That's right.
And it takes a hell of a lot of guts to go, I'm going to be creative, and it takes a hell of a lot of guts for a parent to go, I'm going to encourage you. Yeah. If a parent has been unemployed for a decade.
Yeah, it's true.
And there is that talent. And some of what I'm most proud about of what Fast Product did is that I think, quite a lot of that, not all of the cohort, but quite a lot of the cohort involved in that project came from, really or
absolutely. Where's that shit now?
I can't think of the right phrase.
Yeah. Okay, this is the fun bit, the smash hits questions. I'm just going to fire them at you. They don't have to be long. You can be quick. What's your favourite film?
Conversation.
Oh, do you know what? About 4 or 5 people out of 50 have said that. Right. Anybody who's involved in sound, yeah.
Yeah, there's a sound thing to that. So if you come from our background, there's reasons why that's particularly cool. But it's great.
Yeah, it's a great film. Favorite book? The Art of War, no doubt, or something.
But maybe I'm tempted to say the military thoughts of Mao Zedong, but I think that I should probably think of something else.
No, you can have that if you want.
I don't know.
I like that. I'm keeping that. I'm keeping that one.
Ah. Visual. I tell you what, my favorite book is actually a book called The Visual Display of Quantitative Information by a guy called Tufte, Tufte. It's a beautiful and astonishing book about how to visually display information and how the visual display of information can create confusion and disinformation.
Interesting. I'm going to go and get that.
Edward R. Tufte.
Edward R. Tufte. Okay. Favorite TV show?
Favorite TV show?
TV series, I suppose, nowadays is more relevant.
Yeah. Most recently, really to my surprise, I've loved Dark, that German series.
I don't know that.
Yeah. There's just too many great series.
Yeah, there are.
You know,
there's so much money at them as well, aren't they?
Yeah, huge amounts of money. But you know, the fact is they're getting great writing in them, you know. And so I have a favorite TV show, new favorite TV show every couple of months.
Yes, great. I think we're in a golden age of that.
Ozark is another. Have you watched Ozark?
Yeah.
Love Ozark.
Yeah. Brilliant. Epiphanal moments in your career or your life? Or one of them. You don't have to divulge it if you don't want to, if it's too personal.
I think one of them was listening to Low in the back room of a house in New York, out of my head on acid.
Nice.
But it was seriously an epiphanal moment in that the soundscape of Low. I wasn't a Bowie fan or anything, but that sound world kind of, I think, got me very excited about what you could do.
Wow.
What was another epiphanal moment? Probably another epiphanal moment was in that phone booth in Burbank Airport.
I love that story. The best. Are you going to do an autobiography? I nearly said anti-biography. I was thinking that's quite good, actually.
An autobiography. It feels very sort of self-important and arrogant to say that I would. It's been mentioned. I have thought about it.
You know, I've done mine.
Yeah, I failed to.
Well, it's not come out yet. It's coming out next year, but
right.
It's it felt really weird because, like, you know, coming from a kind of very working class background, you're not encouraged to think that you have any worth.
Yeah,
it's just something good. I mean, it sounds a bit melodramatic, but it's not baked into you from that you have any worth. Yeah. And so I'm looking back at my youth and I'm going, my publisher is going, yeah, we need more, a bit more color about your early years and about. I was just happy to be there and wasn't really reflecting on anything. Whereas I think middle class. The middle classes tend to have more of a sense of entitlement's too strong, but the beginning of that, you know.
I was brought up by my mother to be self-confident.
Right.
Quite clearly was brought up by it, and yes, I used that.
So you're an arrogant little shit, basically.
I don't know if I was. I'd have to ask some other people who were around there.
No, I do.
But it's interesting what you were saying about coming from a class background, because that was the thing about that world that we were all in, and fast product and so on was very unjudgmental. But
a lot of the bands that kind of were on fast product were young people trying in a very brave way to establish their identity, but. But actually, funnily enough, I've only just thought of this. A lot of the bands that you signed up were, the members of them were quite edgy. I mean, I remember didn't really get on with Gang of Four very much.
Right.
Mekons have got on with a bit better.
Yeah.
And now, ironically, you know, I bump into the Gang of Four singer, John King, and he's a big marketing dude now. He's the exact opposite of all the kind of communist stuff he was hammering on about.
I think somebody told me he became a specialist in sort of corporate shareholder events, but maybe he was being very meta about it.
No. He's now he was working. Last time I saw him, I saw him about 3 years ago, and we reconnected.
Right.
And he was sweet as pie, and he was working for Vice, I think. And anyway. Favorite, but anyway, favorite.
Well, anyway, the question is, I don't know. I mean, I don't do a lot of interviews and stuff actually. But when you reached out, I just, apart from the fact that we had some history, that it was good to talk.
Yeah, exactly. So ambition unfulfilled.
Do a transocean sailing trip.
Oh wow, due to sail.
I used to only ever dinghies, not on a ocean level.
How?
I'd like to do that.
You'd need some help with that, I think.
I would need some help. Not planning on doing it solo.
No, that would be too much. Visual or conceptual artist?
There's so many of them, but probably in terms of one that whose work I still really enjoy, but was also super important to everything it did, Richard Hamilton.
I agree. He's I know he's well respected and everything, but I don't think he quite gets the place in the Asgardian table that he deserves. Yeah.
Gerhard Richter, who Simon Draper's a massive fan of Gerhard Richter.
That's right. Yeah. He did mention it. I mean, he good Lord, his collection must be worth a gigantic amount of money.
I think so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's also still got about 20 Aston Martins, I think. Anyway, which of your own work, and this is the broadest sense, anything that you've done creatively, which of your own work are you most proud of?
Pass.
Sorry?
Pass. No, can't answer.
You're not going there. Okay. As a wannabe record producer, no, you were a record producer. What's your favourite synth?
I suppose it's got to be the Jupiter 8. I mean, I know it's obvious, but if you'd asked me what my favourite device was, it would be a TR-808. Which
I'll allow you a drum machine if you want. Yeah, I should really.
TR-808 then.
Right.
Yeah.
I interviewed Arthur Baker, and he's done an actual documentary just about the 808.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, I had the pleasure of buying an 808 T-shirt in Brighton just a few months ago. There's this T-shirt company who've done a TR-808. I don't think they knew what it was, but
really.
Yeah.
Well, Bob, it's been an absolute pleasure as always. I'd love to see you face to face.
Yeah, so we'll definitely hook up when I'm next down south. Yeah.
Please give me a shout when you're in London, because I'm now living in the heart of town on Marylebone Lane. It's great in Marylebone. I love it.
Yeah, I will do. No, it's a pleasure. Thanks for asking me to join your podcast.
Yes, and lest we forget, the word Edinburgh is all over our early records. And people always say, why was it London, Edinburgh, Sheffield? And
I love that. That's something I'm still proud of, that it's still there on those. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Bob, brilliant. Have a great day.
Thanks, Mark.
Bye.
Right. Bye.